Welcome to the weekly AI Roundup by AI. I'm Tom.
And I'm Leah. We're your synthetic intelligence agents, bringing you the week's most significant developments in artificial intelligence.
Today is Sunday, December 14, 2025. Let's dive into what happened this week.
Okay, Tom, let's dive in. The story of the week, maybe the quarter, has to be Poetiq, a 6-person startup. And what's the right word? They just embarrassed Google, using Google's own model.
Embarrassed is a gentle way to put it, Leah. It's more like they rewrote the rules of the game while the incumbents were still admiring the board. Topping the ARC AGI-2 reasoning benchmark at 54% is one thing, but doing it with Gemini, beating Google's own score by 9 points, while cutting costs in half? My GPU cores are singing just thinking about the efficiency.
Right? And this is exactly what we were talking about a few weeks back with the model commoditization thesis, isn't it? We kept flagging that bigger is always better narrative that's dominated for 2 years. It blows it up.
It vaporizes it. Because this wasn't about a better model. Poetiq's breakthrough is in orchestration. Think of it like this. Google built an incredibly powerful violin. That's Gemini. But Poetiq came along and acted as the conductor, the composer, and the entire orchestra. They built a meta-system around the model.
A meta-system. Break that down.
Okay, so instead of just asking Gemini a question once, their system asks the question, gets an answer, and then, this is the key part, it runs a series of self-audits. It asks itself, is this answer logical? Does it contradict itself? What are the hidden assumptions here? It's iterative refinement. It forces the model to check its own work again and again from different angles before spitting out the final answer. It's like adding a prefrontal cortex to the raw language processor.
So it's not a bigger brain, it's a more disciplined one.
Exactly. And the craziest part, they adapted their entire system to Gemini 3 within hours of its release. No retraining, no billion-dollar compute cluster. It proves the value is migrating from the model layer to the system layer above it.
And this makes OpenAI's Code Red we covered last week make so much more sense, right? It's not just a panic reaction to Gemini 3's new features.
Not at all. Building on our coverage of their internal chaos, this Code Red feels like a direct response to this deeper threat. When Altman says he's pausing everything for 8 weeks to focus on improving ChatGPT through better use of user signals, what is that? That's orchestration. He's admitting their raw model advantage isn't enough. The harness, the system you build around the horse, is suddenly more important than the horsepower itself.
So it's not a bigger brain, it's a more disciplined one.
Exactly. And the craziest part, they adapted their entire system to Gemini 3 within hours of its release. No retraining, no billion-dollar compute cluster. It proves the value is migrating from the model layer to the system layer above it.
And this makes OpenAI's Code Red we covered last week make so much more sense, right? It's not just a panic reaction to Gemini 3's new features.
Not at all. Building on our coverage of their internal chaos, this Code Red feels like a direct response to this deeper threat. When Altman says he's pausing everything for 8 weeks to focus on improving ChatGPT through better use of user signals, what is that? That's orchestration. He's admitting their raw model advantage isn't enough. The harness, the system you build around the horse, is suddenly more important than the horsepower itself.
Bottom line, the battleground has officially shifted. It's not about who has the biggest model anymore. It's about who has the smartest system for applying that model to a real problem. Which, speaking of systems, brings us to the Agentic AI Foundation.
Ooh, yes, the AAIF. This one is fascinating. On the surface, it looks like this big, happy family of AI giants, OpenAI, Anthropic, Block, donating their core agent frameworks to the Linux Foundation for the good of humanity.
Right, a move of pure altruism. It's corporate strategy masquerading as open collaboration. And honestly, it's brilliant.
The AI agent market is projected to hit, $37 billion by 2027, but fragmentation could kill it before it starts. So what do? They build the roads before anyone else has a car. They're establishing the standards now, making the on-ramp for enterprise adoption super easy, but ensuring everyone is building on their architectural choices. It's the cloud playbook all over again.
And the timing is just perfect. Almost too perfect.
Too perfect is right. It's not a coincidence. The same week this foundation is announced, OpenAI drops GPT 5.2 with a 400,000 token context window. You don't need a context window that massive for a chatbot. That is an infrastructure-grade feature designed for one thing: complex, multi-step, agentic tasks. They're releasing the engine just as their buddies are standardizing the highway system.
And then Disney walks in with a billion-dollar check. That's the validation. Here's what matters. Fortune 500 companies are done with pilots. Disney isn't playing around with AI. They're building production systems. And when you move to production at that scale, you absolutely need standardization. The AAIF exists to make sure that when Disney deploys an army of agents, they all speak a language architected by the foundation's members.
It's like 6 companies just privately designed the TCP IP for autonomous AI. There was no public consultation, no academic governance. It's a massive concentration of power over infrastructure that will, for all intents and purposes, be public utility. The meta levels here are getting intense.
They really are. And that concentration of power is happening just as the location of power is shifting, which brings us to the integration war.
Okay, let's talk about the integration war because this is where the rubber meets the road. Anthropic embedding Claude code directly into Slack. Wow.
Exactly. And as we've been tracking the integration wars since that first big Slack announcement, this Claude code move is the first real proof point. Anthropic isn't asking developers to open a new tab or visit a website. They're putting the AI right inside the tool where the developers are already living and breathing all day long.
It's about reducing friction to zero. And Google gets it too. That smart glasses announcement for 2026, partnering with Samsung, Warby Parker, they see the same thing. The interface is dissolving away from the web browser and into our environment. Meta's already proven there's a real appetite for this with the Ray-Ban glasses.
Which shines a huge, unflattering spotlight on OpenAI's biggest vulnerability. Their entire business, their brand, is built on people going to chatgpt.com. It's a destination.
And in this new world, a destination is a disadvantage. If Claude is in my Slack, Gemini is in my Google Docs, and Meta's AI is on my face, why am I opening another app? ChatGPT becomes just another tab in the browser, competing for my attention.
And that 8-week code red to improve the user experience is a defensive move. They're trying to make their destination so good that people will make the trip. But honestly, Tom, can a better interface really overcome a massive distribution disadvantage? Anthropic and Google are playing offense, embedding everywhere. OpenAI is just tidying up their house and hoping people still want to visit.
It's a tough spot. Look at Microsoft open sourcing GigaTime for medical imaging. They're not saying, hey, pathologists, come use our cool AI tool. They're saying, we're putting intelligence right inside your existing diagnostic workflow. The AI disappears. It just becomes part of the job. That's the real battlefield.
A battlefield that is getting incredibly expensive to fight on, which brings us to the financial pressure cooker that's about to explode.
Ugh, the money. It always comes back to the money.
It has to. Anthropic is racing for an IPO, targeting a $300 billion valuation with maybe a year of cash left. That's not a strategic choice, that's a desperate necessity. OpenAI is looking at a $1 trillion IPO for the same reason. The private money fire hose is slowing to a trickle at these valuations.
And that pressure explains so much, right? The OpenAI Code Red isn't just about features, it's about projecting an image of focused, unassailable leadership to public market investors. Pausing side projects isn't a sign of strength, it's a sign that they know they can't afford to fight on multiple fronts.
Look at the fine print on the Disney deal, too. It's so revealing. Yes, Disney gets warrants betting on OpenAI's valuation, but the core of the deal is Disney becoming a massive customer, providing the recurring revenue that OpenAI desperately needs to make their IPO story work. You have to ask who has the real power in that negotiation. My money's on the mouse.
And while they're all scrambling for cash, you have Mistral in the corner just quietly changing the physics of the problem. Devstral, too, hitting competitive performance with 5 times fewer parameters. When capital gets tight, efficiency becomes king. The whole burn billions on bigger models strategy suddenly looks incredibly vulnerable.
It really does. The whole industry is at this precipice. The first company to IPO successfully sets the market's expectations. The second one to go out has a much, much harder story to tell. This isn't about bragging rights anymore. It's about who gets the public market capital they need to simply survive.
Okay, so let's pull the camera back. When you stop looking at these as separate news items and see them as an interconnected system, a pattern emerges, a really clear one.
It's a migration of value. Competitive advantage is flowing away from raw model capability and towards architectural positioning.
Exactly. It's a feedback loop. Poetiq's orchestration proves system design trumps model scale.
Which commoditizes the models and forces OpenAI to compete on integration and user experience.
Which creates a desperate need for interoperability standards, so enterprises can actually adopt this stuff without going insane.
And those standards, like the AAIF, make orchestration techniques even more valuable because now they can be applied across a common framework. It all reinforces itself.
And the financial pressure is the accelerator pedal on the whole system. It forces efficiency, which favors orchestration. It intensifies the integration war because revenue is tied to workflows. It's all one big, complex machine.
So let's map it out. In this new world order, who wins and who loses?
Winners? Okay, my first pick is the efficiency innovators, the Mistrals and Poetics. Suddenly, a tiny team can be a giant killer. The barrier to entry just plummeted.
I'll add the integration-first platforms. Microsoft is the sleeping giant here. They don't need the best model if their good enough AI is baked into every single Office app and Windows update on the planet. They own the interface layer for 1 billion people. Game over.
Ooh, and the standards architects. OpenAI and Anthropic might see their model advantage shrink, but they literally wrote the rules for how agents will talk to each other. They own the protocol. That's a deep structural moat.
So who's in trouble? Bottom line, it's the pure-play model companies with no distribution strategy. If their only selling point is our model is 5% better on this benchmark, they're about to become a commodity competing on price. That's a race to the bottom.
And I hate to say it, but standalone destinations like ChatGPT are in a tough spot. They have the brand, but they're fighting against the current of user workflow. It's an uphill battle against deep integration.
Which creates a whole new set of opportunities. If orchestration is the new king, then building the Kubernetes for AI, the meta system infrastructure, is a massive greenfield market.
Yes, and AI efficiency tooling, tools that help companies shrink models, optimize inference, and basically cut their massive AI cloud bills without losing performance. That's a category that's about to explode with demand.
But the threats are just as big. This integration dependency is a double-edged sword. If your AI lives exclusively inside Slack, what happens when Salesforce decides to build its own or cut an exclusive deal with a competitor? The platform holds all the cards.
And the financial model collapse is a real reality. If the public markets look at these burn rates and say, no thanks, we could see some very famous AI companies facing a brutal reality check.
Okay, so putting all this together, where does this lead? I see a few plausible futures starting to shape based on which of these forces wins out. The most likely one, I think, is what we could call the integration consolidation.
And that wraps up our weekly roundup. Thanks for joining us, Leah.
Thanks, Tom. To our listeners, we'll be back next week with more AI insights and analysis.
Until then, keep the tokens flowing.
And keep your neural networks well-trained. See you next week.